Yeah, I'm excited to do it.
It's gonna be good. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Eugene Honrath from Shadow Warriors, and I've got Jeff Davidson from Jeff Davidson Custom Knives, right?
Yes. Yes. What's up, you guys? Glad to be here.
How's everything going, man?
Doing good. Doing good.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting ready for another show. Custom orders. Things are crazy. Always crazy.
Oh, that's good. How's the weather where you're at?
Hot.
It's like when people say, what's the weather in Florida? I'm like, hot.
We actually had quite a few days in a row that they said was kind of a record low, but then now it's back to being hot. I think we're supposed to be over 100 for quite a while.
What city are you in?
So I'm in the county. I'm just south of Fort Worth.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think what a lot of people don't realize is that like Dallas, Fort Worth, it's not like super low in Texas, but it's kind of like somewhere in the middle, kind of,
Yeah.
in terms of like up and down. What's typically the summer like?
Like I say, warm. I mean, typically you're going to be, 98 to 102 a lot of the time.
Okay.
And then I don't know, every once in a while you'll see 110 or whatever. Not nowhere compared to Nevada or some of those places, Arizona. But.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it's just like what I say about Florida is like people are like, is it hot? And I'm like, yeah, it's hot, but it's only hot from like what I think like towards the end of May, June, July, August, and then it dissipates somewhere in September. So, all right, well, let's get started. So tell me, we already know your name. So tell me what you do. We already know where you're from now, but tell me a little bit about what you do and what you sell.
So, this year I went full-time bladesmith.
Okay. So Jeff was doing it part-time. What were you doing? Like, what kind of work were you doing previously?
Okay. So my background is I'm a machinist.
Okay.
I love all kinds of metal work. I was doing knives before I got into machining, but I saw that as a way to learn a lot more about the things I needed to know to do this. And I realized early on in knife making, you need to be able to make a lot of tools and make your own equipment. And there's a lot of weird stuff that they just don't really sell. They do, well, a lot of it they do now, but back then, I started 19 years ago, and back then there was very little information. There wasn't YouTube. Think about that for a second. There literally wasn't YouTube. It didn't exist yet.
How did you so now we're at the beginning, but how did you get started? Like what like got you into knife making in general?
So I was always into knives. As young as I can remember, I was into knives, but it hadn't quite clicked that one person could make a knife. And so we went on vacation to visit my cousins in Tennessee. And somewhere on that trip, we went to Opryland, and there was a blacksmith there that he was making all kinds of stuff. He was forging all different kinds of stuff. And then he pulled out some knives that he had made, and then he forged out a blade. And that's when that light bulb went off when I was a little kid of like, wait a minute, that's how this works. Like, because I already thought that blacksmithing was cool. And I'd seen that in the movies, and I'd seen a few live demos blacksmithing when I was little, but I didn't make the connection that they could make a blade. And so like that just rocked my world, dude. And so from there I went home and I found some pipe in the backyard and was trying to heat it up with some charcoal to be able to hammer it out flat. And obviously I'm a little kid, so I didn't know how to do it or how to make a bellow to get it hot or any of that. So it barely got hot enough. I was basically beating on it cold, really.
Yeah.
Well, that's what started the curiosity, is that one encounter of seeing that guy forging at the theme park, and it just exploded from there.
Yeah, it's interesting how that happens. I think that sometimes if we thought about it, we would realize like that's how it happened. But you don't, especially back then when you're younger, you don't really think about that kind of stuff. I think the first time I realized that I knew people made stuff, but people like seeing someone make a knife or a sword was at the Renaissance fair when I was like 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there, and kind of see a guy forge out a small like knife or sword or something. And I was like, okay, all right. So you're saying that this buck or this old timer or whatever, is made by someone, and then you start thinking about that and you're like, okay. So you started back way back in the day. When did you start to, in your mind, like really start making knives?
So, like I said, I was interested in when I was young, and I collected knives. I mean, every birthday, every Christmas, anytime we get a souvenir, I always wanted to get a knife. I mean, just growing up, and then I was in Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout, so that's always a big part of that culture of using knives.
Yep, yep.
So as far as like when I got serious about it, about 15, I started really trying to ask my grandpa, like, "Hey, can I use your bench grinder? Can I use all your different tools?" And started playing around with that kind of stuff. Um, and then 18, I packed up, and the day I turned 18, I bought my grandpa's truck from him and moved to Wyoming and did my apprenticeship with Ed Fowler.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you arrange that, or start that relationship?
So I
Because I don't necessarily know who Ed Fowler is, but what I do know is that um, for a teenager, I mean, I know that you're like right on the edge, but a teenager to strike up a relationship like that and take such a big risk and do such a big thing is, I think it's awesome.
it was life changing. It was huge. As far as how that came about, we had talked back and forth on the phone, and then I had read both of his books, and I went to take one of his week-long classes
Okay.
there on his ranch, and he was in between apprentices, and he basically asked me after I got done with the class and got back home. He called me, basically asked me if I wanted a job. Of course, I was blown away by that. I mean, I almost told him no because I didn't feel like I was ready for it. But I mean, it honestly, I mean, changed my life in more ways than I can ever explain. Because I mean, yeah, being a kid, going off on your own, learning new skills. I mean, and I worked for him on the ranch whenever I wasn't working on knives, and so pretty much ranch hand by day, knife maker by night, and that was awesome. That was awesome, and he's a great guy. He's a great guy, and he took a chance on a kid that didn't know much about life in general, and it was good for me all the way around.
That's interesting. Is How old is he? Is he still alive?
Yes, yes.
How old is he now?
Uh, don't get me lying. He's not a young fellow. Um,
Because I mean, I just looked up his. I mean, like I said, I had no idea um, uh,
he's
who
been
he was.
making knives probably 40 years.
Interesting.
He's been dealing with some health issues. He was at Blade Show this year. He said that this will probably be his last Blade Show. But
I can see some of his influence in your knives now that I'm looking at the pictures. Um, that's interesting, man. How long did the apprenticeship take, and how long were you there with him?
so I was there, and we worked 7 days a week for 8 months. It was actually cut a little bit short. So long story short, my grandfather started having some health issues, and I actually came back home to help out the family. And I had intended to go back, and the way the circumstances worked out, I never made it back. Um, I don't know. I think things happen the way they do for a reason, but
True.
uh,
True.
it was a great experience, and I mean, we're still good friends, and I have a lot of respect for him. And he's helped a lot of people along the path. And we've kind of taken two different roads, but I mean, he encouraged me to make my knife and not his knife. Like
Sure.
he and I've had collectors that they want me to copy or make an exact thing of his, and he's given permission to all his proteges to do that, to make his style knife. But I that's just not my thing. And like, I wanted to be me, and he encouraged me to be me, and I'm thankful for that. And the guys that I work with, I try to encourage them to do the same thing.
That's it. That's interesting. So you came back, and then how did you get into being a machinist?
So I tried to. So here's the funny thing is, like, after I came back and tried to, like, say, help out with the family and all that kind of stuff, and then to kind of resettle my life here, I tried doing the full-time thing for a little while, which in hindsight was pretty foolish. I mean, I didn't have a lot of experience, and I didn't have a lot of money. So I mean, I was able to buy the basic things that I need, but it became a struggle pretty quickly to realize, like, okay, I don't have the name and the reputation to back up trying to make a full-time living off this. So like, this is fast forward back to, or rewind back to, I guess, '05,
Okay.
somewhere there, yeah. And so for about a year, I tried to do that. And I picked up a few odd jobs here and there, just helping out different people I knew that had their own businesses. Like, I knew a guy that was doing yard, did that for a second here and there just for some cash. And anyway, long story short, to answer the machinist question, one of my good friends, Cody Smith, I knew him from church, and his dad, that is what he had done his whole life, is machining. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but I attribute him as being one of my strongest life mentors ever. I mean, he taught me a lot about life and a lot about building just about anything. But
Yeah.
anyway, I went to go help them out. To answer the question, I went to go help them out with a big project just on the weekend, and it was never meant to be, well, from my perspective, I didn't think it was ever meant to be a job. It was just going to be helping out some friends and making some extra money.
Yep.
And like I say, the knife shop wasn't cutting it. So I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I got there and I saw all the cool stuff they had. And I was like, man, this is awesome. Because they had a fab shop and a machine shop. And I was like, if I could learn how to do this stuff, I could learn how to do all the other things I need to do.
Yeah.
And it's funny how, in my opinion, I don't know how anybody makes knives that doesn't have some kind of background in either mechanical or fabrication or machining or all three, because unless you just buy everything pre-made, there's a lot of stuff you got to figure out. So Mark took me under his wing, showed me anything I wanted to know, and I started working there 2 days a week, and then in the knife shop the rest of the time, and that just spiraled up into, man, I really love this stuff.
Yeah. What did you guys make there?
It was a job shop, so we had 6 people that worked there. We did everything from small government contract stuff that was subbed out from somebody else, to oil field stuff, to all kind of things, downhole oil field stuff for tanks, stuff for Humvees, stuff for helicopters. It was a cool job. It was a really cool job.
It sounds like it. And you got to work with your hands and learn a whole skill set that you didn't have before.
Yeah. And they did manual machining. They did welding, fabrication, manual machining, and CNC machining. So I got to start dabbling in some of the CAD stuff, got to start learning some programming, and the old school stuff, like cutting single point threads on a manual lathe. I mean, so it's, like I say, once again, another experience that totally changed my life and helped mold me into who I am. And I'm thankful for that.
So how long did you do that until you just went full-time technically last year, right? Or 19?
I took a leave of absence December 8th from General Electric. So the last company I worked for was General Electric. that was a good place to work. Learned a
Yeah.
lot there, met a lot of good people, still have a lot of good friends there. Um, I officially quit just a couple months ago.
Okay.
But I mean, I had done the day job thing since December of last year. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's been a wild ride. I know there's a lot of things I still gotta figure out. It's going good, and I thank the Lord for His provision, and life is good. We've had
It,
everything we needed.
it's a big step to go, especially when to go from a paycheck to no paycheck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
How the past over the past few months, how has that been? How is it better or worse than you thought it was going to be being a full-time knife maker?
So honestly, it's been better than I thought it would be.
Okay.
And so,
Why?
well, I mean the money has come from unexpected places, and I've actually done better than I thought it would. Like I don't know, you hear so many stories of people like kind of like I did on my own the first time, where they kind of go off half cocked and they're not ready, and they just fall on their face.
Yep.
And really, all I can say is that I mean God's provision has come through, and my customer base is amazing, and so many good friends, family and good friends have come through to buy knives and share my stuff and put the word out there. Um, People come in a Blade show that they said they specifically came there to meet me. I mean, stuff like that just blows me away, because like you got a room full of world class talent, and I mean, there's a family that bought one of my nicer pieces, and it's the centerpiece of their living room, and they sent me pictures of all that and everything, and they just blew me away. And the fact that I mean, you would have thought they were so amped up about it. You would have thought that I was giving them the cash and the knife, and that they were walking away with everything. I mean, they
Yeah.
were that tickled to get it. And
Nice.
so, like that kind of stuff, I don't know. I just felt like they understood me, and so that touched my heart, and so it's been super. So I mean, not just financially rewarding, but it's been rewarding as an artist and a craftsman, and then to have the free time and the family time and the flexibility, and not have to. I mean, if something comes up, then I have to ask to go deal with something. I mean, that's been nice. And don't get me wrong, I mean, it's way more responsibility than having a regular job, because and I'm a workaholic. I can't turn it off. Like I literally do not know how to take a break. So I guess that's kind of good, but also kind of bad. I mean, you got to be a driven person to be self-employed.
Yep.
But
It's a double-edged knife.
yeah,
It's one of those things that I think, and you see this now, that it gives you the freedom to literally do whatever you want. But spending that time without responsibility, irresponsible, can have downfalls and can really hurt your business and deter you from your dream and that kind of stuff. So I would say that I think being a business owner, even though you have a lot of flexibility, is much harder and much more challenging in a variety of different ways than having a job you have to go to every single day from 9 to 5 and be on
right,
time and that kind of stuff.
right. And like I say, I've known since I was very young that I wasn't meant to work for somebody else. And I mean, I don't know. The whole corporate America thing, I mean, it was good for me to build the foundation I have now.
Yep.
And I was able to learn a lot of things about manufacturing and all those kind of things to do, things not to do. But I knew that wasn't me. And I don't know, I guess ask me these questions again in 5 years and we'll see how I feel about it. But it's been a wild ride. I've loved every second of it. I mean, it's a little more stressful in its own way, but I mean the like I say, you can do whatever you want. But
Sure.
if you're a driven person that can't turn it off, honestly, to me, that's not like having to stay motivated, having to keep things going. To me, that's not an issue. To me, trying to slow down to enjoy the downtime is the issue for me. So staying driven to keep things moving, to me, that's natural. And I'm not saying that I've got it all figured out or anything like that,
No.
but I think to do your own thing, you have to be hardwired. You have to be hardwired where you're a driven person.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that maybe you have a different perspective on it than most new full-time knife makers do, because you had been there and done that, in terms of like, you tried it, you effectively failed, you hopefully learned from that, and now that's starting back over. um it's different. What did you learn from that first time? What's a couple things, like three things that you learned, or a couple things that you learned from that first time, that you're either doing better or changing now that you're full-time again?
So, I mean, the biggest thing, like I say, is build a strong foundation. When I say that, I mean strong foundation, financially strong foundation, mentally.
Yep.
Like I say, have that self discipline and that drive. That you got to have that self discipline to not buy things you don't need, and to put money aside for the equipment that you really do need, and then do your homework and zone in on, okay, if I'm going to make this a business, what can I do to make money? Buy things strategically that make money. Don't buy things that don't. I mean, I'm not saying don't have fun, but I'm saying if you're focused on the business starting out, don't buy whatever you think the cool kids are using. Buy what you can afford. Buy the best tools you can afford, but make sure it's all a puzzle piece. So every time you buy a bigger piece of equipment, make sure it fits what you're trying to do. Just because it's what everybody's using doesn't mean, I mean, it may be the best, but just make sure, and then do your homework and learn strong foundation of your skill set, because having all the cool toys won't necessarily make you a great knife maker. So hanging out with people that are very knowledgeable, learning from people that are very knowledgeable, paying to learn from people that are very knowledgeable will give you a leg up. I've been very fortunate to learn with a lot of really, really good people.
Would would you say that it's better to have less and make money than spend money? So what I'm trying to ask is I think sometimes knife makers specifically, I see this in other business owners, but in knife makers specifically, they feel like, especially newer knife makers and the ones that want to sell their knives, they feel like they have to have like the best of the best, and they have to buy that 5,000, 8,000, or whatever, a really expensive grinder, before they feel like they can really push forward and make a quality product that they can sell, versus starting with something lesser and building that skill set to you can make money to then buy that grinder.
Right. So my grandpa always said that you don't go into business, you grow into business, and I do think that's true. And don't get me wrong, the nicer your setup is when you first start, the easier it's going to be. But if you don't back that up with drive and heart, it's not going to matter.
I like that, man.
And so people, my veteran knife maker friends watching this, please don't get me wrong. So I mean, if you have 30 grand to go into knife making, I mean, yeah, buy a Paragon, buy a Outlaw or TW90 right off the bat. Buy the best stuff you can, and then work your butt off to justify those things. But
Sure.
if you can't, which is most people, yeah, get the best thing you can afford at the time. Buy your equipment one piece at a time. Join together with your friends and use their stuff here and there until you can get better stuff. I mean, and just work your butt off. I mean, and so learning a $5,000 grinder will not teach you how to grind. It will do a better job. It will run smoother. It'll be more versatile. It will not teach you how to grind. So that comes from practice, and that comes from in here just working your butt off. I don't really know how else to say that.
Do you do so? We'll get back to some of the other questions that I have in reference to like starting and stuff. But did you start obviously uh, with Ed? That was foraging, correct?
Yes.
And so do you do more foraging where you take a bar stock or round stock and heat it up and hammer it for the non-knife people out there? Or do you do stock removal where you have a piece of metal and then you cut it down to shape and then you go that way? Which one do you do more of, or which one do you do?
So the core of my business is still blade smithing,
Okay.
and so here's what I'm gonna irritate some people, but I don't care. But to me, if you forge, you're a bladesmith. If you do stock removal, you're a knife maker. To me, that is a hard set line. If you do both, then I guess you're whatever you want to be. So I consider myself a bladesmith, and I do stock removal knives, but the core of my business is forged blades.
Okay.
So here's the caveat to that. So like stainless air hardening stainless steel, you can forge it, but most time you're going to do more harm than good. So like some of the nicer chef's knives I'm doing are air hardening stainless steel, Nitro V, S35, stuff like that. Anyway, I've got a batch of 3V that I'm about to do. Anyway, if you're forging those, you really got to know what you're doing to be able to take it back to the right state and then do a good heat treat on it. Because it's hardening as you work and you can crack it anyway. So you're actually better off doing stock removal on certain materials.
Okay.
And then like nicer Damascus, stuff like that. Once you get to a certain point, a lot of people will do stock removal on that, or if they forge everything to shape. I mean, it's a blend. It's a blend of everything. Anyway, that was a simple question. I'm giving you a complicated answer. So basically, I've got two sections of my business. So I've got Jeff Davidson Custom Knives.
Okay.
And I've got Davidson Tactical. So the Davidson Tactical stuff is simpler, more reasonably priced designs that are all water jet.
Okay.
They're all water jet or laser cut. And then all my higher end stuff is all hand forged, one off. Every single one is different, hand finished. I mean, from scratch.
Which one do you like more?
Hang on 2 seconds.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the wife's asking me a question.
That's okay. Hey, man, you gotta talk to the boss. Which one do you enjoy more?
Oh, forging hands down. Forging hands down. So just being fully transparent, I resisted the stock removal for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And then when the mid-tech knives became more popular and I started seeing more people I respect, that they were doing their high-end forged stuff and they were doing their Damascus, and then they had kind of another lower tier that's still a good knife, still good quality materials, but it's more production style. That kind of started to open my eyes. Like, okay, there's always going to be people that they can buy a $200 knife or just under that will never ever buy a $700 knife.
True.
And so when I
but then there's also that person who has the money. They're used to spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for an AR. They have a ton of toys. They have all these things, but in their brain, I don't even have one here with me. I mean, to them, this is what they carry. They carry a buck.
Right.
Like in their brain, it's not there's custom knives isn't even a thing on their radar. But as soon as it becomes a thing on their radar, I think some of those guys want to put their toe in first. So buying a $200 knife, that customer could turn into $1,000 knife guy real quick.
And that's a reality. That's a reality. And Robert Oliver was the guy on the phone the other day that I was trying to tell you about, and I was having a mental block that he got 2 customs from me, and that was kind of his first venture. into the custom world,
Yeah.
and then now has a lot of different stuff. And has, I don't know, probably dozens of Dan Topes knives. And Robert's a great dude. He's been super supportive of my work and many other makers. And you're right, there are those customers that once they get a taste, they're going to be all in. And I don't know, I appreciate those kind of people, because honestly, guys like me need guys like that are willing to support you over the years, come back over and over and over. And I've got people, don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those people that has collectors that people have like 50 of my knives or 100 of my knives. We're getting there. And I'm just glad to have a good community of people around me that support me, that they're lucky. That some of them, they only got one, but that is their prized possession and they will never sell it and they will never get rid of it. And they tell everybody they've ever met to come buy a knife from me. And I appreciate that. And if they never buy another one from me, that is okay, because they're out there repping my brand and supporting me. And I appreciate that. And I realize for some people, $500 or whatever is a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, so tell me about your product line. Is every single one custom, or tell me about it like in general terms, from kind of like your mid-tech and your all the way up to your full custom Damascus and higher end stuff?
Okay. This might take a while. So I like variety. Okay. So, and some people even told me like, you should like pick one or two things and just stick with that. I can't do that. I can't sit still long enough to do that. And it's working well for me. So I don't see a reason to change. So, and you've seen my stuff, so you know it's all over the place. So my mid-tech stuff, as far as, and I know on your notes you said flagship model, all that kind of stuff. For me, EDCs and hunting knives is kind of my staple, if you will. And then so I took my most popular designs and then made them into the mid-tech. So like the small hunter.
Go ahead while you're talking. I'm just going to show some of your knives off.
Okay. All right. Depending on when this goes live, there may or may not still be a raffle open for one. But yeah, so like that right there would be a higher end custom version of one of my medium hunters, essentially. And so my mid-techs, I took a couple different designs that were very popular in the one-off stuff. So I took handmade, one-of-a-kind forged pieces and traced them and then sent them. So my good buddy James Hughes in Buda, Texas, does my graphic stuff. He does my logo design stuff. He does my CAD drawings. There's some of the leather classes. We got a Kydex class coming up. The classes have been huge. We can talk about that here in a second. But and I apologize, I'm bad about staying on topic.
No, you're good. You're good. I like it.
Anyway, we took some of the most popular, functional, everyday designs and hunting designs and turned them into the mid-techs. And then I had a bunch of those water jet. And so that has kind of snowballed from there. I've got a bunch more designs we're working on putting into production right now that I'm super excited about, that I don't really have any good examples to show y'all right here, because they're just, at this point, they're just ideas on the computer.
Yep.
Yeah, there's like so much random stuff in that feed about classes and everything else. But
that's okay. That's okay.
If y'all are watching this, this is a pretty good snapshot of all the different things I do. That blade right there is a demo that I did at Jim Ford's house with the TKG hammer in. That was a lot of fun. That profile right there is 100% forged to shape at that point. There's been zero grinding at all.
So what Jeff is saying is that, so 100% forged to shape. So he hammered everything that you see in reference to that knife. Whereas some guys will forge some of the knife and then grind the rest of it. Correct?
Yes. And so that'll still require some stock removal, but I mean, it's, and that's the same blade there, but I mean, it's the profile is 90% there and the bevels are there the majority of the way. And I did that in an hour and a half, which is really rushed for me. That tomahawk is Mike easily forged that at the Hammering. Pretty cool piece.
Looks
Just
cool.
some of the highlights of the get together. And we're doing our own real quick plug for my Hammering, October 2nd. Anybody watching this, y'all come out to Kennedale, Texas, October 2nd, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're doing live forging demos. I'm gonna forge some blades. I'm gonna give away what I forge. We're gonna give away some knife making supplies. I'm gonna have a drawing where you can pay a couple bucks and enter to win a class or enter to win a custom knife. So all kind of cool stuff. Got a handful of different sponsors and vendors coming out there. Frog Jelly will be out there.
So you have a I'll make sure that all the links are below. You have a wide range of knives that you offer. Everything from, I mean, I'm going to try to explain it so someone who doesn't really know can understand. From knives that everything is hand done by yourself, correct? Other than the things that are water jet or laser cutout, you're doing everything. You don't have other employees or.
And I know on your notes later on you were going to ask about that. So I've trained 2 proteges.
Okay.
The first was Daniel Keats, and he was helping me out. Great guy. He's kind of taken a temporary step back from knives to go back to school for business. So I salute him for bettering himself. And then my current protege and good friend is Kevin John. His company is Wayfarer Knives.
Okay.
Wayfinder Knives. Sorry.
Wayfinder Knives.
Anyway, he's doing a good job. He's helping me with sheaths and just really whatever I need, he's willing to do. And so he's eager to learn. Now, prior to about 2 years ago, it was all me, and that was it. As far as the final finish work on everything, at this point, it's still all hand finished by me.
Okay. Well, I think your look on it and your description of it may be a little bit more specific than most people actually are. I tend to think that anything that is, I'm not saying that it doesn't make a difference, but I think that sometimes people get in this minutia of like being too hard on yourselves, you knife makers, and you're like, well, it's a little bit more mass produced. So, and it's cut out with laser and it's cut out with water jet. So I'm going to call it a mid-tech, when in reality, the only thing you're really not doing is the cutting out of the blade shape, but you're doing everything else. And most knife makers would call that a custom knife.
Right. So. And so that very predicament has weighed heavily on my mind. And I need to break that down into several things. It's something I want to say before I forget about it. Earlier, you're asking about the forge versus stock removal. Something that Jason Knight always says is that all knives are forged because the bar stock was rolled out at the mill. And that kind of goes back to what I'm saying about certain steels. You're hurting yourself more than you're helping yourself. I like the art of forging because you can shape it into anything you want.
Right.
Now, as far as the mid-tech stuff, to me, like I say, you always have that price point where people, like I say, they need something entry level to get a taste and see where your quality's at. Maybe they want to try out your steel. Maybe they want to try out your heat treat, your edge geometry, see if you're a cool dude and whether you honor your word or not. Anyway, and then maybe they'll get something higher end. And then you also they have the everyday user that they're going to always want a beater, and they're not going to want something with a lot of flash. And you also got your law enforcement and your military guys. They buy a lot of my kind of user grade stuff. And so as far as the mid-tech, I've been really reevaluating on what I should actually call that line, because like you say, at this point, they are still hand sanded some. I've been doing my texturing on a router, but it's on a jig that's still freehand. So I've been looking forward to this interview to kind of go in depth on some of the new changes moving forward. So I actually have purchased a CNC router.
Okay.
I haven't got it going up and going. So the end game for that is to be able to CNC machine the G10 and carbon fiber and hopefully other materials as well, to have removable scales for the mid tech or production or whatever I'm going to call it moving forward, because they're still going to be hand ground. It's still going to be all in house.
Yeah.
And so I've got to kind of figure out where I want to go with that, because you're right. A lot of people have told me that my mid tech right now is not a mid tech, and technically,
well,
right.
I don't think that I think that the discussion of mid tech, is it a mid tech or is it not, is one that most guys like yourself who are hard on themselves, who are true craftsmen, feel almost like not as authentic, because you don't have, you're a little bit less in the process than you are with a forged knife, and that's what you really love and that's where you came from. So you feel like, well, I got to call it something else because
Right.
I'm not doing every single thing.
And that's part of where my struggle comes from.
But I think that if you educate your customer on this is my process from, this is where I start out with forging stuff, this is where I start off with stock removal, and this is where this knife, the process for this knife was a little bit more automated. But I mean, come on, even having a CNC router cut out your handle scales, you still have to fit them, you still have to drill the holes, and you still have to do a lot of the things that are involved in the knife. If anything, it'll probably teach customers to question other knife makers, which for them will be bad because
Well,
they're not part of the process as much as you.
I always want to educate the consumer, and I don't know, that's really why I started doing the videos and the live chats and all that stuff in the beginning, and the testing videos. I just want people to know what they're getting. And that's part of what I think is so cool about custom work is you're buying an inanimate object, but you're also not, because you're getting a piece of that person's heart and a piece of that soul. And if it's a one-off, if it's truly a one-off, to me, that's pretty special. But even if you're buying something that is a production design, that's a spin-off of something custom, to me, you still need to know what you're getting.
True.
And so that's what I want to do, is offer tremendous value for what you're getting. So, I mean, so take the mid-tech or production, whatever I want to call it, small hunter, for example. So, I mean, those start out.
You know what? The more you say production, I actually think that's much more fitting than mid-tech. Because because people mid-tech, it's like, when I first heard that, I was like, what is that? Like, I don't understand.
Well, it's a confusing term. It's a confusing term.
No, I know. It is.
And now I've explained it so many times, and even though I mean, like I say, it from what I understand, A.G. Russell actually coined the term.
Okay.
And then it kind of became industry standard. And so people that have been around it forever, they know what it is without thinking about it. But if you try to explain it, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, because I mean, I think a true mid-tech is you have something like, do you know who Battle Horse Knives are?
Yes.
I would say that even though their stuff is more mass produced, to me, that's more of a mid-tech company versus anything that you're going to ever produce, because I think for a long time, you're more than likely not going to completely be hands off of it.
Oh, I don't
knife.
I don't ever see, I don't want to be hands off. In my heart of hearts, I don't want to be hands off. I want to be efficient.
Yep.
I want to be repeatable. And so back to the router thing for a second. So Compliance Edge out in California.
Okay.
We've been talking back and forth on Instagram. I honest to God don't even know the man's actual name. I just know his company's Compliance Edge. He
Yep.
makes some cool stuff. Um, he has went down a similar path from going from everything was hand done. I mean, he was still building standard models like I was doing, but he went from everything being hand done to using a Haas mill, using a CNC router to do his handles, using the Haas mill to do his blades. And so we've been talking back and forth. And so,
Did you see the latest? Did you see the latest news with him?
The collaboration thing.
Yeah.
I'd seen some of the teasers.
Yeah. So the guy that he's talking about, Compliance Edge, who's on Instagram, is going to do a collaboration with Tops. Now, I would say Tops is like, I mean, they're a full blown.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
I mean, I think one thing that I really respect about it is that Tops is 100% made in the United States.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that versus going somewhere else.
Right. And I think they offer a good product for the price point.
Yep.
They're solid blades, and I'm congrats to him. And kudos to him for also sharing with the knife community how he does some of his stuff, because he doesn't have to do that. A lot of people don't share. So, I mean, he shared a lot of information on how he does his 3D contour on his G10. He shared a lot of information on how he does his Kydex process. We've been chatting back and forth on that. Anyway, I just wanted to thank him for that. And I'm excited to implement some of those improvements in my process. And so moving forward, I do want the production stuff to be more efficient. And just being fully transparent, I do want to take it to a point where the scales with minimal hand fitting would unbolt off one and go on to another and already have the texture and the contour and the counterbores and everything. I'm a long way from that. At this point, every one that's ever come out of the shop, the radius, the mid-tech stuff, the production stuff, the radius has been put on there with a router freehand. The texture's been put on there with a router freehand, and it's just eyeball.
Yeah.
And people have said, well, you did that on a machine. Well, it's a power tool, but a grinder is a machine technically. Yep. You still got to eyeball it. So, but I'm trying to.
But when you say, see, this is where I think it gets off a little bit. When you say people, what Jeff is actually meaning is either really picky customers or knife makers, because a majority of customers, I'd say almost all of them, they don't care. Sure, there are a portion of those customers that care, like for what they're paying for. They want to know what the process was. But for the regular customer, you care more than they do.
Right. Well, and I feel like it's my job to care, but I know what you mean. And so where I'm going with all that is trying to improve the process to where I can use excellent quality materials. I mean, for an everyday user knife.
Yep.
Great heat treat, great edge geometry. And in my opinion, the 80 CRV2 is the absolute best economical everyday steel. I mean, that's just my opinion. And
yep.
To each their own. But to me, if I can offer a mid-size EDC knife for under $300, that is rock solid with a lifetime warranty with an awesome sheath, that's what I'm after, is being able to do that. And then if I can automate more of the process to be able to come out with another model that's even more cost effective for the consumer, but it's still rock solid materials, rock solid design, that's where I'm at. And then, like you say, those guys come along, they see what you're all about, and then, okay, maybe I do want one of these guys' custom pieces. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, if you're a customer and you're watching this, and the guy that you're buying a knife off of, or even the company that you're buying off a knife of, doesn't care as much as you see Jeff caring about this, then you need to buy from somebody else. Because I think that one of the things that you said earlier is that you're buying an inanimate object, right? You're buying a knife, a mid-tech, a production, a fully custom knife, and anything in between. But for me, where it really means a lot for me, and it makes me more pumped up about the purchase, whether it's a $200 purchase or an $800 purchase. Is the person, is it, I guess I've been spoiled by people like yourself, and knowing incredible knife makers. I can't buy a knife from, or carry a knife from, someone who I just don't like.
I get it. I get
So
it. I totally get it. And to me, it's also pretty cool. And like, I kind of collect knives. I mean, I've got a handful of customs and a handful of higher end production folders. And I trade for them here and there and stuff like that. And I've told myself that every big show that I do well at, I'm going to buy myself one nice blade, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, but you're right. It needs to be a special, for me personally, it needs to be a special connection with the person, that they're a good person, they're a cool person, they stand behind their work. And it also, I mean, it's got to have sexy lines, it's got to be classy, it's got to be clean. And it could not even be my style, but it has to be well executed, if that makes sense. I actually have went after knives. They look nothing like mine, but that's why I like them, is because they're different. But, and also, to me, the maker has to be strong and confident in who they are as a person and as a maker. And that, to me, that shows. To me, that shows through, even without speaking a word. If you look at the work, that shows through.
Yep. You can tell really quickly, whether it's through video or pictures, or even PMing someone and talking to them, on whether they actually care about the product that they sell.
Right.
Especially in the knife world, if and that's like a double-edged sword for you guys, because the time you spend with me, the time you spend like messing around and talking with customers and stuff, is less time that you have to produce the thing that you're there to produce and sell. But you can tell real quick on a knife maker who cares and a knife maker who just doesn't at all.
Right. And actually, let's back up real quick about the advice I would give to somebody starting out. Sorry, notifications and whatever, I can't see. But real quick, back to advice for people I'd give starting out. Like I said, build a strong foundation.
Yep.
Financial foundation, skill set foundation. Surround yourself with people that push you. Then when you grow, push others. But build a strong network. Be careful how you treat people. Surround yourself with people that push you to grow, not hold you back, not ride on your coattails. Surround yourself with people that are more knowledgeable than you. Surround yourself with good-hearted people with integrity, and keep them close.
Yep.
As you grow, that in the long run will go way, way further than making a quick buck, scamming people, just trying to knock stuff out and get it out the door. I mean, quality and integrity sells itself. So keep that close.
You're 100%. Do you have any knives there, like around you, that you can show us? Or do you want to go through some knives on your page?
I'm trying to think what I have out here. I got a lot of rough stuff. Let me grab a couple that aren't so rough.
Look at some of these knives. Oh, that's two.
We could go through some of them on the page, but they're on there so mixed match with other stuff that's in process. I mean, I have that stag one. I have that stag one that we're looking at, and I've got one of my Santokus that I need to finish up for the Arkansas show. Yeah, that was a really cool piece. We can talk about that for a second.
Yeah, tell me about that, because is this, where's the original? Oh, okay. Yeah, tell me about this one.
There's actually a few good pieces right there we should talk about. But yeah, that right there is the iron sharpens iron fighter. Long story short, that was a I don't want to get too far into the contributions, like I don't want to sound pompous, but that was a 50-50 commission piece, 50% me donating my time. And so I've got a friend that he runs a local charity or local ministry for the homeless, that he commissioned that piece. That was a really, really cool build. It was really, really fun build. And every time I do something like that, I try to really push myself to, and so he put it out there with a raffle, and I wanted it to raise a lot of money. So I tried to just do something totally nuts. And so he gave me the theme. He gave me a pencil drawing that somebody had done of that sword on the front with the scroll, and then I kind of changed it up with my interpretation of the style. I mean, he already had the wording on there. I etched the blade with scripture on there. Anyway, that was a really, really cool piece. Glad to be a part of something like that. That resin is absolutely insane. That wood on there is absolutely insane. Terry Dunn did the
Who's this?
stabilization on that.
Who's this resin? This handle from? So what people, if you're not in the knife world, this is some kind of wood and then some kind of resin, or we'll say it glue, but some kind of epoxy resin, right?
Yeah, so it's Alumilite. It's Alumilite resin, G10 liners, and I think that was box elder on the wood. That S guard is primarily forged in. That was a lot of fun. So I cut the bar in two places on the bandsaw, and then filleted that open, and then hammered out the upper and lower guard to make the S on there. That was a lot of fun.
That's insane, man.
That sheath, that was a big learning curve. I actually carved the front of that sheath twice because I scrapped the first one. I'm trying to push my leather work.
Why did you scrap it?
I had a couple little spots I just didn't like. I had one sheath, I remade the front of it 5 times because there were little things I didn't like.
What do you do?
Not that I don't want to make a habit of that.
What do you do with, like, where's the front of this sheath, that the one that you scrapped? Like, throw it away, put it to the side?
It's in the drawer of broken dreams. No, I'm playing. I don't throw them away. Stuff like that, I save it to look back on as inspiration for stuff later on, and also to remember milestones of things I learned. Because I mean, I never get to keep the original. So I mean, there's lessons to be learned in the failure. To me, failure is not a bad thing.
How much did this knife raise? And then, yeah, how much did the knife raise?
I think almost 1,300.
Nice. What would this, if I wanted to buy a knife like this from you, what would this cost one of your customers? Guesstimation about?
I mean, exactly like that with the tooling and everything.
Around about, yeah.
I mean, you're going to be looking around 1,200 ish, depending on what inscription you want. I mean, say you wanted exactly the same thing. I mean, yeah, you're looking a good little chunk.
Okay, over $1,000.
Oh yeah, all day long.
We'll say.
I mean, so honestly, I mean, if you go to a leather guy, and have him make that sheath, that's going to be a $200 sheath, $250 sheath.
I think easy.
Tell me. And then right there, that glowing one that's kind of cookery-ish, that's the beginning of the tiger shark. So if y'all go back, and the only professional made video, and then to your left, the shining one that's cookery, that's that knife finish. That's the same blade. It was very rough in the initial forging. That's part of the way through the forging. The only professional video I've ever had made, that's it too, yeah. I try to document everything. So if you want to go back through old builds, you can follow the timeline on everything. Yeah, there's the original, the scales for that as they started out life. Anyway, there's a video shot here at the shop that shows a lot of the highlights of my process. It's only 3.5 minutes long, but it's really intense.
Where's it at?
If you go under the videos on my page, it's from almost summer to almost 2 years ago. I can send you the link. It'd be easier for me just to send you the link.
Okay. And how long is it?
3.5 minutes.
Okay. Well, we'll put it in here. We'll put it in here.
but I feel like it really captures what I want to show the public for what I'm trying to do. Anyway, we captured most of the rough forging of that blade in that video. I just thought it was cool how it all came together. And then that's the piece. That's the piece that the family came to Blade Show and bought that knife and said that they came there just to see me. And it just really, yeah, that's it. That's the one that they came there to see that and to meet me. And I don't know. That just touched my heart. I don't know how else to say it. And then
That's
I got
awesome,
a couple of
man.
these blades in my hand if you wanted to look at some stuff. Of course,
Yeah.
this reverse camera like this not going to do it justice. But so this is one of the chefs that I need to finish up for the Arkansas show. So August 13th and 14th, y'all come out to Little Rock. Somehow they let me sneak in with a bunch of good knife makers.
Yeah. Nice.
And then this one is black ash pearl, and then some more of that aluminite resin. Root to Forge 80 CRV2 with my signature acid etch finish on there. And then there's that stag one that you're looking at picture. This is just about done. I'm working on the sheath for it. This guy is anxious to get it. It is just about there.
I love it. That's awesome, man.
Thank you. And I appreciate you doing this. This is fun.
Yeah. Hey, man. I think I'm trying to think about where we first met.
In person at Blade Show 2016.
Did we know each other from Shadow Warriors previously?
Yeah. Just online.
Yeah. And we met way back in 2016. Man, it's been a while. So talking about Blade Show, how was Blade Show, the knife show in Atlanta that you went to in June? How was that for you?
Oh, it was incredible. It was incredible. I mean, the turnout with all the COVID stuff wasn't as strong as it normally was, but it didn't really matter. The right people were there, if that made sense. The people that really were passionate about it were there. And so I would say the traffic was slower than normal, but the energy in the room was more than normal because people were just glad to be back at it. And people were glad. The makers would be glad to be doing shows again. The customers were glad. The collectors were just glad to be handling knives in person again. And that's back to what I say about you're buying a piece of somebody's heart and soul, is to handle it, ask them questions, and then look them in the eye across the table and shake their hand, whether you buy it or not. That experience is special. And so everybody that knows me in real life will agree with me that I'm not a people person, but I'm a knife people person, if that makes sense. Because in that setting, the people that understand me, it's a room full of people that understand me. And so that opens up a new part of me that I don't show very well otherwise.
I'll say that from 2016, you've come more out of your shell. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I used to be so scared to talk online. And after a while, you just don't even worry about it. But I used to be so scared and me and Peter Kohler joked about this in the pit because he used to be absolutely terrified. He'd just show the knife like this and then show the knife like this and then cut the paper and then kill the video. And I used to be the same way. And so we were ribbing each other about that this year. And he's another one that, I mean, his popularity has exploded, but he used to be so shy that he wouldn't say anything at all on camera. He'd just show the knife. And I used to be the same way. I would just cut some stuff and then say, hey, what's up? And cut some stuff and turn the video off.
It's the only way that you can try to replicate that in-person knife show, right? So one of my memories of Peter Kohler was way back in the day. He's like, I got this knife and this is what it is. And then he's like out like hitting 2x4s outside of his shop with it. And it's that goes a long way because you're buying the person. I think you're buying the person. And I think most knife buyers of these kind of knives would agree that video, showing how it works,
Oh,
talking,
absolutely.
education, I
Absolutely.
think it goes a long way to me feeling good about buying a knife from someone. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
not it's not a money thing. It's like, I want to buy a knife and a cool person.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that goes hand in hand. And so and my guys give me constant crap about this because I do, even at the shows, I still struggle to engage with people that there's still a huge part of the knife community that is an introvert. And so if they're walking by and they're not super open, I have a hard time opening up to them if they're pulled back and reserved too. And so Kevin and James and the rest of the guys that went with us gave me a constant hard time about, you actually have to talk to them and reel them in. And I do struggle with that. I mean, if they come up and they're into it and they're alive, and then it opens me up. But I still
Yeah.
struggle to
Well, what I like
be
to
alive.
call, even though you don't want to be, sometimes you have to be that salesman. And it's because it allows people to then be like, oh, I can be engaged with this person, because if you let most people, they'll just kind of look. They won't even look up at you. They'll look at your knives and then they'll just walk away. But if you engage them in some way, shape, or form, like comment on something that they're wearing or that they purchased, and you can get them in a conversation, I think most of the time you'll see that go from this to, oh, okay, and talking like that. So
Right. And I want to treat people like they're important. I want to treat people like that. I'm glad that they're there. And like I say, I'm trying to come out of my shell, and you're right, I have some. Um, Now back to the testing video thing though. I think that's important, and I would like to see more makers do test video. And actually, this one, y'all got to go, if you haven't seen it. You got to go check out the video of this one. It was half shiny, half black at the time. But I would cut up a piece of wood, and I actually did a live video where I tried to auction off that piece of wood because everybody was talking so much crap. Like, man, that was an $800 piece of wood you just cut in half. So I signed it. And I tried to auction. Nobody bought it, but I mean, it was a joke. But I tried to auction off the wood because everybody was talking so much crap about how, man, that was a super expensive piece of wood you just destroyed. But it's a cool video, cutting rope, chopping wood, a whole bunch of stuff. Y'all go check it out on Instagram or on the.
Is that one still available?
This is a custom. This one will be available, but this is a custom.
Oh, okay, for someone.
Yeah.
So you offer knives in a variety of different formats, tomahawks
Here and there.
And then you have, tell me about the knife making, leather making. Tell me about the class side.
Okay. Yeah, that's, and I got way off track when you asked me about what I offer, because it's
that's okay.
The correct answer is I try to offer too much, and there's not enough for me to go around. That's the correct answer. But yeah, so I've got the variety of stuff, the high-end stuff, the classes. So the classes, let me set these down. The classes has become a big part of my business. So anybody interested in classes, I've got a week-long start to finish knife seminar in September. I've got one that's already filled. I've got one that's available. There's a full list on my Facebook page and Instagram of all the dates.
What happens at a knife making class that's a week long?
Okay, so that one literally is everything start to finish. We forge the blade, we grind the blade, heat treat the blade. Well, drill the hole somewhere in there. But anyway, forge the profile, forge in the bevels, drill the holes, heat treat the blade, grind the blade, do all your prep work for the handle, glue on the liners, dress the base of your scales, glue up your scales, shape the scales, polish the handle, I mean, you leave with a finished sharpened knife, everything but a sheath in that week, and it's $1,000, all materials, all tools provided, and you got a one of a kind knife. And I'm gonna build one alongside of y'all. We're gonna build one of my brute DeForge hunters.
How many people do you normally have in these classes?
So it depends. I mean, the week long one, I'm limiting it to 3 just because trying to give people the up close and personal attention that they deserve. It's hard to do it. I mean, two is a happy medium to where I can really focus on that. Now the forging classes, we do 4 people, but that's only one day and we just forge the blades. But some of the more intricate stuff, I want people, like say, once again, I want to offer tremendous value. I want people to learn a ton. I want them to walk away with something they're proud of. If trying to commit to a week is too long, I also have it broken up. So I've got a forging class, a grinding heat treat class, a handle class, and then leather sheath classes and kydex sheath classes. We just finished up the leather sheath class, which is some of what Eugene was showing a minute ago on the feed. I doubt this will drop before Saturday, but we're about to do a kydex class. And a lot of guys have told me you should sub out your sheets. And back to the whole thing about caring so much, I struggle to do that because the guys that I respect, and don't get me wrong, there's some amazing sheath makers out there, but the guys that I respect enough to do the quality of the work that I want, my customers that are going to carry a $300 knife, they want a sheath that reflects that price range. So, I mean, the guys that I like that make sheaths, their sheaths are $200 or $300.
Right.
And so I can't put a $300 knife in a $300 sheath and still sell it for $300.
Right.
Anyway, there's some amazing leather guys out there. I'm not saying I'm one of them. Most of my stuff's been self-taught. I've got a good friend that's a boot maker. He's showing me some stuff, and his stuff is absolute next level out of this world. One of the best, Carmen Allen, one of the best leather workers in the state.
Right.
I don't ever see myself being at that level because I don't put the time into it that he has. And so that's the thing. If you want to sell anything, you really, really have to put the time in. But the classes, the leather class, the kydex class, I basically just give a general overview of what you need to get started, what tools you need to get started. I've got a sponsorship with Frog Jelly now, Frog Jelly Leather. That's been amazing. So let's make sure to put their website in the video is frogjellyleather.com.
Okay.
And so like they give me new things to try out just to share with the knife world. And so that's been an amazing relationship. And we teach the leather class there at their shop here in DFW.
Nice.
And all the other classes are at my shop in Fort Worth. But yeah, if you want to learn about knife making, if you want to learn about forging, grinding, heat treating, handles, sheets, hit me up. We do classes almost year round. And if you want to do something very specific, my schedule is super booked till the middle of October. But after that, if you want to book a private lesson, I do private lessons as well.
What does that cost?
This is why I scare people away. $50 to $75 an hour, but that's materials included. So you can wreck a lot of materials in an hour in a knife shop.
$50 to $75 an hour is not that much at all. Ultimately, I mean, if you're looking at like some kind of private lesson, swimming, gymnastics, cheerleading, baseball, you're looking at $50 to $100 an hour.
Yeah.
So $50 to $75 an hour ultimately is not that much. Now the process of making a knife is a lot longer from start to finish, but that's nothing.
Right. And an example of that, like I've got a few students that they've come and taken a group class, and then they wanted to come back and just like hone in on a few specific topics, and they came for like half a day, came for the whole day. And it's been nothing but good positive feedback. Like, okay, that was worth it to take the learning curve off and get down to business. And that's why I say stay a student, because and hang out with the right people, pay to go learn with the right people. I mean, there's tons of master smiths that have shared information with me for free. There's also that like I say, go take classes. And I've
or
learned
or
so much
or
from
go
going
live
to
at
different
someone's
videos.
or go live at someone's house and work on their farm and learn from them.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're all in, if you have zero real life commitments tying you down and you can pack up your whole life and do that, then do it. But I couldn't do it now.
No.
But at the time I had very little tying me down. So.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself going? Like what's the future look like for you in the next 5 years or so?
I feel like we focused a lot on the production stuff. Let's talk about where I'm trying to take my work. And so, in a
Okay.
way, the production stuff is a way for me to get to a point where I don't have to always worry about having inventory and to have some steady income so that I can work on the super high end stuff. So
Okay.
as far as my goals as a maker, as a creator, uh, more Damascus, mosaic Damascus,
Making
get
your own.
yes. I mean, I'm already doing my own, but it's 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 not where I want it to be. It's not
Okay.
where I want it to be. That's a whole new learning curve. Engraving is something I really really want to learn. I'm really into sole proprietorship, which is a long hard road. But the guys like Jerry Fish are absolutely amazing. That they do their own Damascus, they do their own engraving, they do their own inlay, they do all their own embellishments. 100% sole proprietorship, and his knives are insane. And I mean, and they sell like that, and they're worth every penny. But I mean, he's doing every bit of that himself, and to me, that is so cool. That is one guy can do gold inlay, engraving, Damascus, everything else in between, all themselves. To me, that is incredible.
I don't How do you feel about the business side of that? Is that having such a focused, what sounds like a higher dollar product only, is that where you're headed, or do you want a wide breadth of $200-300 knives up to the moon?
I mean, so right now, my price range is like 165 to over $2,000.
Okay.
So moving forward, I would like there to kind of be a break in the middle. Like I said, you got the production stuff over here and then the super high end stuff over here. But like I said, I'm trying to get the production stuff where that's a steady flow, where I'm not always having to hustle for the shows as much. And the classes have really taken off, and I'm thankful for that. But that has cut into some of my time for just production and custom. So I've got to manage my time a lot better. So from a business aspect, that's what I'm trying to do, is let the production stuff continue to flow for a steady trickle of income, steady trickle of inventory. So when I go to a show, I'm not having to worry about filling the table. That way I can take the time and up my game on the skill set stuff that I'm talking about to really dive in. And to me, I mean, it is a business, but to me, chasing the craft is not about the money. I mean, honestly, making knives is the worst way to ever try to get rich in the history of mankind. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
and so for me, chasing the art, is what it is about. And I don't want to get so lost in making money that I stop bettering myself as a maker.
Okay.
Um,
Is that why you started doing classes? Is that a to further on the art, to kind of pay homage to
that's
Ed and all that?
that's a big part of it. Is I feel like that's part of what I'm called to do, is educate people, and that's been super rewarding. And I've got to meet people from all over the place. We've got people coming from all over the country, which to me blows my mind. And I mean, some of them keep in constant contact with me, and so that's developed some good friendships and relationships through that. And I want to see people do well. And I feel like the knife community is one of the very few that actually gives back to itself to create their own competition.
It's one of, I think, because I think, number one, the knife community is awesome. It's one of the most involved and caring communities that is, by and large, without there's not much drama in it. I mean, there is, but it's really contained. Awesome, caring people like yourself, cool guys. And I could name all these reasons that it's impacted me. But I think that the reason why that mindset and that action of creating customers, um, why I think that continues on, because even the production and the custom knife world is so small, and such a small portion of what could be the knife industry and the sports industry, and that's kind of where the knife world falls, that there's so much potential for growth that it just get absorbed by the overall industry, and it doesn't really feel the effects of creating customers and new makers and that kind of stuff.
Right, right. And I don't feel this. And a lot of people will say, "Well, don't you feel threatened by teaching more people?" No, not at all. I don't feel threatened by it at all. And the people that have invested in me, the people that have taught me, the people that have just shared advice along the way, they didn't have to do those things.
Until today, I had never heard of it. Like it wasn't someone that I I didn't know who Ed Fowler was.
Well, y'all kind of run on different circles, and he's not really online much. But
but do you see what I'm saying? Is like he's made there are a lot of knife makers out. There's a lot of knife makers out there making a lot of money that aren't even in our Facebook.
Right. Well, I'm sure you know Bill Burke, right?
A little bit. I don't really know.
Bill Burke is one of Ed's proteges as well. And his Damascus is insane. I mean, he's kind of went off on his own path too. But I mean, he's a good dude and great maker. Yeah, man, there's so many people out there doing cool stuff. Like, I feel like one lifetime is not enough to try to even scratch the surface on how much there is to learn. And like, people come and they take the class and like, okay, so do you have all the tools you need? No, because every time I feel like I've learned what I want to learn, I find something new that I want to try, or some new way that somebody's doing something, or like say the mosaic, the engraving, the things I've barely scratched the surface on that at this point to me are just as frustrating as making that first knife. And I will say in this, being a perfectionist is a blessing and a curse, because it makes it where you don't want to show things to the public unless they're perfect, which is good for your reputation, but it's bad for progress, because sometimes you're so worried about trying to make it perfect that you just never finish it, and it goes in the drawer of broken dreams that I was talking about, and it literally just never gets finished.
Yeah.
There's many names for the drawer of broken dreams, but everybody has one. And if they don't,
you could probably make some money off of that stuff that's in there.
Yeah. And every once in a while, I'll learn something new where I'll realize there's a way to fix one of my past mistakes. And so that's a big part of becoming a knife maker too, is learning to avoid the mistakes, but also learning to fix the mistakes before they go so far sideways that it is trash.
Yeah, gotcha.
Now, to me, the leather work drives me crazy, because on the stamping and the tooling, one little spot, and it's done. And there's not really, you can try to do a different design to try to, but there's no good way to fix it. There's no good way to hide it, and it's done.
So quick question. I don't think I actually know the answer to this. So this is kind of raw, but did you ever do Forged in Fire?
So no, I knew that was going to come up at some point. So they reached out to me multiple times. I applied multiple times. The last time they reached out to me, I was kind of like, okay, y'all, I hear the turnover there is quite high, and I realized, y'all, I don't even remember the person's name. I wasn't rude about it. But basically, I was like, well, maybe a little bit. I was like, look, I'm a very competitive person. Y'all go check out my Facebook and my Instagram. I promise you will not be disappointed. Give me a shot to do this. I'm very competitive. You will not be disappointed. Basically, I won't waste your time. Please don't waste mine. Because they kept contacting me and it was always somebody new.
Yeah.
And I'd say, go pull my file. And they're like, oh, we are already in the system. And they'll say, well, I'll see what I can do. And I never hear anything. But then I hear guys that barely even make knives getting on there. And it's like, what's y'all's deal? I mean, I just think it wasn't meant to be. I would
Yeah.
have loved to do it. I would have loved to do it.
I don't think that I think it gives it gives a good view into knife making, but I don't know. I haven't really made up my opinion about it.
Well, it
But
has been good for the industry because it doesn't really educate people, but it shows them, it opens a door to people that didn't know that craft was there. And so the people that are motivated to learn about making knives, or the people that are motivated to learn about what makes a good knife and become an educated consumer, it has been great
yeah.
for the guys like me. But it has also created a lot of bad information out there that has to be cleaned up.
Well, I think that I think that at least starting the dialogue, I think a lot of what should go on with knife makers in general is education. And if you don't know, you don't know, kind of a deal. And I think it can start to increase its market cap in terms of the overall industry. But yeah, I could see it causing a lot of issues. I'm sure that you get a bunch of questions like, hey, I saw this on
Right. I mean, I still think it's a good thing. I enjoy watching it personally, and to me, a good example of it. As far as it being entertainment, but not necessarily. If you watch the hot rod shows, it won't turn you into Chip Foose. If you watch Mountain Man in Alaska, it won't turn you into survival expert. But if it interests you in those things,
true,
enough to learn on your own, maybe it sparks that interest. And that's a good thing.
It's just like Naked and Afraid might get someone to go camping.
Yeah. I mean,
or seeing something on Forged in Fire might make someone search on Google custom knife.
Yeah. So it's all good. It's all fun. And as long as we see it for what it is, no issue.
Yeah. Well, but I know that you probably can't watch many or a lot of the episodes because you're like, don't do that. No, don't do that. Don't.
I mean, I know about half the people that have been on there, so it's always fun to see them do well. And then if they don't do well, I'm like, oh man,
harass them when you see them.
And so that's been fun. That's been fun. And I do hear a lot of things like, oh, I saw this on the show. Is this true or whatever? And
hey, if it gets you a class, someone to join your class, then it makes money. So, but hey, listen, man, we've been going at this for almost 2 hours. I'm gonna put the links below. I'm gonna we'll get this out there. I'll probably get this, we'll get this out there. Is there anything that you kind of want to close with and let people know?
Really just I appreciate all the support, and those that are new to kind of following along. I mean, buckle up, because this is really only the beginning, because now with going full time, I have more time to devote to really doing the things I want to chase. And like I say, to me, chasing the art is where it's at. And so y'all just get ready for the rest of this wild ride and see where it goes. But appreciate the support. And like I say, surround yourself with people that push you and push others, and whatever you're into, whatever dream you're chasing, go catch it. I mean, and being whatever you're into, if you don't believe in it, other people won't either.
Yep.
So don't.
Amen, man. thank you so much for taking the time today, and we'll get people connected with you.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, man. Check out the Facebook group, JDCK Clan on Facebook, Jeff Davidson Custom Knives on Instagram and Facebook.
I'll link that below. I'll link that below, and we'll make sure that everybody gets your links. Thank you so much, brother.
Appreciate doing this. Appreciate you doing this.
Take care, man.